I'm going to call to order the Finance Committee of Monday, March 29th. And my dogs have decided to start barking right now. Okay. They don't like the script anymore either. We are now using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. People registering to be an attendee must use their first and last names. Otherwise, they will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. I will call on those who've raised their hands in the order they were raised. The YouTube chat will no longer be enabled and all questions should be directed through me. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronow, Chair of the Nantucket Finance Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. And let's see, Peter Schaefer.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rick Sears.
Here.
Libby Gibson.
Here.
Ryan Turbot.
Here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment as previously noted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude, I will ask any members of FinCom if they have any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, wait until the chair yields the floor to you. And if you want to engage in conversations with other members, please do so through the chair. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Thank you. Okay. May I have an approval of the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Peter Schaefer.
Yes.
Stephen.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Chris. Denise, aye. Then the approval of agenda. Okay, I'm going to go to potential adoption of meeting minutes, and then I'll go back to public comment. So on the last time when we adopted all the meeting minutes, it's almost like, seashells by the seashore here. I didn't state the dates, which I should have done. So I'm going to just read out the dates. I know we did approve them last time, but to be thorough. So this is for January 28th, February 4th and 6th, March 1st, 4th, 8th, 9th, 11th, and 16th. And all these dates are in 2021. So may I have a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second? May I have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Joanna. Okay, I realize it's redundant, but nonetheless, Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. I will now open the floor for public comment, which I think, Kevin, is over to you.
Can you hear me?
We can, and you have to
Okay,
say,
great, thanks.
please state your name, Kevin, okay?
Yes, Kevin Kuster. I live at 83 Main Street, and I would like to request that the board reconsider my article that they discussed last week. In looking at the video of it, I felt like there was, some possible missing information and some information that was different than what I recollected. So I'm not sure what the process is for that, but I was told to come and make this request at public comment, and hope you will hear us out.
Kevin, I think at this point, what's appropriate is that you state your case as to why we should reopen the motion and explain the points that you think were misunderstood, and then ask us at the end of that explanation if someone on the Finance Committee would be willing to reopen the motion.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. I was a little surprised when I looked at the recording on a couple of points. The first point being that when the chair opened up the meeting, there seemed to be confusion about a document that the chair had received from town administration. And at one point, it seemed clear to me that the chair wanted to postpone the meeting to get that information further clarified. And there was also a comment made that the town administration had said that this work was already being done. I followed back up with town administration to find out what that comment was so I could better understand it, and was told that it was a formatting issue only, and there wasn't really any understanding of why this was confusing at your end. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that, because when in looking at the video, it was very confusing to me, because earlier that day we had gotten an approval from traffic safety, and there were no issues raised about formatting or any other concerns. As you continue to review the article last week, one of your committee members made a comment that something to the effect that Rob McNeil at DPW was already doing this type of work and was working with us, and implied that he was working with us. And I just wanted to state, I have never had a conversation with Rob McNeil about whether he is or is not doing this, or he intends to do this, whether he likes it or doesn't like it. And I raise it as a couple of points. Number one, that DPW is not the only contractor on the island who puts up signs. They're put up through the NP and EDC and working with the state. There's development people that do them within their own developments. There recently has been talk about a citizens group in Wisconsin that wants to put up 55 or so different warning signs. So it isn't just the town, and hopefully the town does do it, and which would be great. I had gotten first involved with this back when the Milestone Road project was being worked on. I was on the HDC at the time, and I tried to get the HDC to have review of that process, and was told that that was something that wasn't going to happen, basically. So even back that long ago, there's been people like myself and other people concerned about the amount of signs that are going up, and every turn seems to be that it's either being handled, it's being done, or we shouldn't worry about it. It was out of all of that, and then the recent stuff now, when everybody saw Milestone Road get done, and their comments have been, well, that's a state road and there's nothing we can do about it. But the fact of the matter is that if we would have had this bylaw change in place, then there would be something that either the NPDC, planning, or the HDC, or the historical commission could go to the state contractor working on this and say, hey, this is what our regulation calls for. That's what would get people to begin to look at the signage more closely, and to not just give us an off-island solution for these types of things. So out of all that, this seemed to be the simplest way to put this issue of all these various signs that seem to be hitting the island more frequently because of the rapid pace we're developing. This seemed to be a way that we could put it within our regulations, and if everybody uses the smallest ones, great. If everybody can separate them so we don't have clutter, great. And I think it's pretty simple. Traffic safety was okay with it. And I just felt like somehow it got off track. Either the finance committee didn't understand it fully, or there was some miscommunication. So that's kind of what I just wanted to, impart. If you still think it's not an appropriate article, perhaps you can tell me why, and we'll just figure it out on town meeting floor. If it's a format issue, happy to work on that. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but that's kind of a recap of why I'm here. Thank you.
Right, Peter Schaefer?
Just a question, Kevin. You talked about Rob McNeil, that you hadn't talked to him. Had you tried to talk to him, or have you called him?
No, I haven't.
Hillary?
It's a little strange that
Yeah.
you're doing. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Kevin and I worked on this bylaw together. It's his bylaw, but I definitely worked on signs a lot. I did reach out to Rob McNeil, and I see that Libby Gibson is on the call today. I also reached out to her, and I just want to thank the DPW for trying to implement minimum signs all over the island. I do think it's correct that, and I have heard from them that they want to have smaller and fewer signs. And I think what we're seeing when the DPW is putting up signs, they are the minimum size. And I think they look really good. I think everybody else thinks they look really good. The problem is, and the reason why we wanted to have a bylaw is that we did try to have some sort of like guidelines or policy that could be forwarded to contractors to say this is what Nantucket would want. And we just came to the conclusion that this unfortunately needed to have a bylaw to allow the voters to express their preference about these signs. The trends in signs among, engineers going to the default specification. This is not the DPW, this is all the other people that put up signs, is to have 30-inch and larger signs, really bright colors of signs. And so I really hope, I did also listen to the recording. I tried to join the meeting, but unfortunately was delayed with my family and missed the discussion. And I want to just echo what Kevin said, where I did hear that at first there was confusion about the format and some kind of a complication, which I think was a miscommunication because it's just simply taking just a formatting change, really. There was no material change to the bylaw or the article as proposed. And then the second thing was the committee seemed to be voting on the information that the DPW is already doing this. And if we had been able to be at the meeting, we would have clarified that since proposing this article, we haven't had any dialogue. The DPW has not reached out to work with us or explain anything to us or talk to us at all. But we did talk with them ahead of time, and given our experience, both Kevin and myself and the other people who petitioned, I mean, a lot of people petitioned for this article, felt we came to the realization that it's not, there's many other players involved. And so some kind of central solution was warranted. So I would really appreciate it if possible at all, that the motion could be revisited, because it did seem like some of the information that the vote was made on was potentially not complete. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hillary. Finance Committee? Is there anyone to make a motion to reopen? Jill?
I'll make a motion to reopen.
Okay, I'll second it. Now by roll call. So this motion is to whether we want to reopen our discussion and deliberations on this motion, and then to make a new motion. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Stephen Morey. I'm sorry, Stephen, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Joe,
No.
Chris,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George. George is, yeah, that's okay, George, you don't have to unmute, we know. Joanna?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries. So the deliberations are reopened. I have to say, I have to react to your last comment, Hillary, about you haven't reached out, the DPW hasn't reached out to you. I would have felt it was more appropriate as the sponsors of this article for you to reach out to the DPW. So, you know, I'm in general, I think when people are sponsoring articles, there's a proactive piece to that, which is community involvement, getting feedback from everybody and working with the relevant parties. So it's good that the DPW is already doing this in most cases, as you've pointed out. I don't think anybody wants to see big flashy signs around Nantucket. And at the same time, you know, my suggestion would have been that being a bit more proactive on your side with the DPW would have been in the best interest of this article.
So-
No, hold on a second, Hillary, I have to ask the rest of FinCom if they have any comments or questions. Stephen?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Kevin, or if Hillary wants to take this, can you describe to the committee who are the worst offenders here? You mentioned that the problem is not the town or not the DPW. So who is the problem? And where are some examples that I might
Sure.
remember?
In my experience, it was coming out of planning, coming out of our former transportation planner. And not totally, I don't think it was intentional, but if you've ever looked at a set of plans that they submit for this stuff, they're just, you know, voluminous plans, and you have to really look at them closely. And I think that what happens is that the engineers are the ones who end up getting hired by the transportation planner. They're kind of on automatic, and they punch in these guidelines for which are now the state guidelines, and the town has adopted them. You'll hear this come up more and more. They're called the Complete Streets Guidelines. And the Complete Street Guidelines they're a mechanism to make the streets, the signage, the accessibility, all those kinds of things uniform across the state. Some of them fit here and some of them don't. So my concern is going forward, for instance, when we start to work on the new rotaries and sparks and those kinds of things, should we fall back onto, you know, complete streets, which the town has made a commitment to using, that these issues could resurface again by an off-island engineer who's implementing the complete streets on behalf of NPDC or the state or whomever. I think those are the ones that's probably the one that we can't control the most. So that's my take on that. I think the group in Sconset that's proposing it is a civic association, but that one probably will stand we probably have a better chance of getting our arms around that through the HDC, as an example. So my main concern going forward is the stuff that we haven't put the holes in the ground yet, but we have a lot of road work coming. If you look, most recently where the bike crossing crosses by Consu Spring or by Consu Springs as you go around, or by
the Goose Pond bike path.
Yeah, Goose Pond. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. That's got the larger signs. It's got a warning sign that tells you the crossing's coming up, and that was an example that got brought into town. I think the examples along Milestone Road are what got most of the other residents kind of upset about it all.
But excuse me if I'm misunderstanding, but I think in your introduction here for why the committee ought to reconsider its motion, you said that it's not the town, it's contractors and it's other people who are, it was something in Tom Nevers you referenced, developers, I think you said, but it sounds like it is the town. It sounds like the town is the problem.
Well, I misunderstood you perhaps, Steve. I thought it's not, I don't think that DPW, I guess I was viewing DPW as the town. If planning and transportation is the town, then yes, it is. However, I say that, but that's kind of the point of this article, is to get a baseline about what's allowed, what's the minimum that we want, so that it's not left up as as a subjective thing to a new DPW director, a new planning, or like a new traffic manager position. If we say that this is what we want, then that's what we'll get. We won't have to wonder about it, and we won't have to ask. We have something that we can tell the engineering firm, the town can say, this is what we want. I don't know if that helps.
Hillary, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to address the issue of who are the worst offenders. I mean, I think these things are, there are lots of different players, and I think that people can mean well. Currently we certainly have a priority at the DPW of having smaller signs, but people come and go. There are projects that are outsourced. Nothing goes up on our roads unless, it is the town, because nothing goes up on the road unless the project is signed off by the town. But some things are outsourced. And as far as how we got to this point of proposing this article, Madam Chair, I do want to clarify that I spent a tremendous amount of time working with town administration on reducing signs and having kind of guidelines or some sort of a descriptive, whatever you want to call it, statement about using minimum signs and fewer signs. And that sort of effort I was told that it was not going to happen. And so the legislative body of Nantucket are the voters. And I think that the voters should be able to decide what they want the signage on their roads to look like when that is their option. So that's why, we're spending our time as citizens, trying to propose this bylaw. We will propose this article at town meeting and the voters can vote on it. But, I think it's the reason for a bylaw, just to emphasize what Kevin said, is that it's almost like, well, then we won't have to think about it anymore because the voters will have made their statement, the town will have expressed its preference, and contractors can look at complying with our laws when they are hired by the town, and whoever is overseeing the contractors can direct them to look at the law. And we spent a lot of time trying to craft a bylaw that would be really easy to follow and really clear. And that's what we hope we've proposed.
Thank you, Hillary. Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. The first is, there was mention of the HDC being able to have an impact on the situation in Sconset. Why would that be, and what's the HDC's jurisdiction overall in this matter?
The HDC has jurisdiction over well, I asked this question of town council back in 2012. Town council said unequivocally that the HDC has control over all signs, even town signs. Now, he may have changed his opinion on that, and this isn't trying to tell anybody how to make signs or what material that they have to be made out of wood and they have to be carved. So if a group were to come up and put up a whole bunch of signs in Sconset or in Tom Nevers or wherever, there would be a complaint form that would be sent in, and the sign advisory council would send a notice to that group. And if the signs were on private property, they would be asked to be removed. If the signs were on the town property, the town would have to come and remove them. That's an example of how that would work.
Okay. And just another question, Madam Chair, if I could put the town manager on the spot in terms of why wouldn't town management want to be armed with something like this if we're all kind of in alignment about, and I think we probably are generally around the concept of decreasing visual clutter to where it doesn't impinge on safety. Why wouldn't town government want to be armed with a bylaw like this to use to their advantage and sort of making that case on an ongoing basis?
I don't think we thought it was necessary. We can take care of this internally, and except for temporary fluorescent signs for safety purposes, it was our opinion that we didn't think it was a big problem. It's also not priority number one.
Is there, as follow-up, is there a cost to having, what's the downside, I guess? Or do you see a downside other than just? it's
If we're
kind of a
not
nuisance
allowed
to
to
do?
have safety signs, there could be a downside because there could be an accident.
Thanks.
Jill?
I think my comment, and I noticed this a little more this weekend as I took a look at it. I'm just driving around. Sometimes that's the best way to figure things out. And it does seem that there must be some wiggle room on signs for us to consider this bylaw, because it's not necessarily the same in every case. So I can't possibly go to every sign and tell you how it got there. But for example, at the crosswalks, you know, sometimes there's a picture of a person and then it'll say underneath ped crossing, and then underneath that it will have an arrow pointing to the ground. But then not all the pedestrian crossings are like that. And that's the same with stop signs. Sometimes it says 4-way, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that's necessary, I understand. But sometimes, like out by the airport, there's like 4 signs and it adds up to a huge amount of signs. It's completely redundant. And it just occurred to me, maybe this is actually a good way to streamline that process a little more, so there is some more consistency. You know, we demand that consistency amongst the HDC does with a lot of our building and structures. And I don't see why we can't do it with the signs. So I just wanted to make that comment that I'm open to reconsidering my previous vote.
Thank you, Jill. Stephen?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Brian, does the town receive any funding from the state's Complete Street funding program?
We have gotten grant money from them, yes.
Is it bigger than a bread box, smaller than a bread box? How much money do we get from them?
I think we're eligible for, it's bigger than a bread box, not smaller.
Yep.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but for some reason, $400,000 rings a bell relative to some work that was applied for before. That will be starting eventually. I think it's related to the Pleasant Street sidewalk.
Okay.
So we have gotten in, and I think, you know, obviously Complete Streets has grant money attached to it, so that we would most likely through the DPW director and or transportation planner, we would eventually probably apply for more in the future, I would expect.
And through you, Madam Chair, to Kevin or anybody else who can answer the question, if we don't adhere to the Complete Streets guidelines, I assume that would make the town ineligible for that funding?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the signs are erected based on engineering judgment. And the reason why the Complete Streets protocol is, the mandate of Complete Streets is that you consider all modes of transportation equally. So you can't, for instance, preference a car over a bicycle or pedestrian or moped. You're supposed to view the roads in a shared way. It's about equity. And it's also about safety and slowing traffic down. So narrower roadways, generally wide, or crosswalks. There's nothing in Complete Streets that says you need to have 30-inch signs or, so there is a requirement that you have fluorescent signs in school zones, which is why school zones are accepted from this proposal. But the way the article is crafted, it just says that you need to use the smallest allowable sign. It doesn't say you have to use a smaller sign than is allowable.
Thank you, Hillary. Other questions from Finance Committee? Peter Schaefer?
Well, it might be a great article, but the fact that you haven't talked to the people who run the town's roads really bothers me.
But we have.
You're proposed, just don't interrupt me, please. You're proposing something that is really going to have an effect on the entire island, and you're not discussing it with the people that run that specific part of the town. And I find that, you guys admitted that you didn't contact him, or that he didn't contact you I don't think that Rob had to contact you, but that bothers me.
So if I could just respond, Mr. Schaefer, we have had many discussions. We also, Kevin has not reached out to the DPW, but I have had many discussions. And when I said that I haven't contacted them, I haven't contacted them since proposing the bylaw. But I mean, I had many conversations.
So
beforehand.
am I to assume that Rob has seen all this and signed off on it? Or given you at least his opinion?
I can't speak for Rob, and I can't let you know what to assume. I can tell you that this bylaw was reviewed by the Traffic Safety Committee last Thursday, the 18th. They did vote to support Article 82. And Rob did vote no. And the reason that he gave was that he felt the DPW was already doing these things, which is consistent with what what Jill said in the meeting earlier. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speak for him.
Thank you.
Hillary, Jill?
Madam Chair, can I just make a comment to Peter, what Peter said?
Of course.
Peter, I think some of the problem might be, we don't have a transportation director right now. Have they replaced Mike Burns yet? I don't know if they have. I didn't think they had.
Well, we don't have a transportation director. That doesn't mean that a group of people who are interested can take over that position. I mean, there is somebody who the transportation director would report to. There is a town official.
I realize that, but a lot of that in that work, in my experience, just following a lot of the stuff around the schools and other developments, it is a lot of it is generated in that office. That's where a lot of it starts. And I think that's what they're saying is he's the coordinator with the engineers. And sometimes that is not necessarily outside of Rob's purview, but it's just been delegated. So, Rob's got a huge job. And I very much appreciate that they are trying to keep that sign to that limit, but I'm more concerned, I think, about the volume of signs. And that was something that struck me when I went back and read the article. And we are seeing sign creep on the island. I do believe that. And I think it's good for us to consider this really seriously so we protect the character of the island throughout and uniformity.
Kevin, you raised your hand.
Yes. Maybe this is a little blunt, but if I had confidence that, well, first of all, this isn't a high priority for the town. Libby Gibson just basically said that, and I agree with her. It shouldn't be, but at the same time, if I had every confidence, I've been trying to minimize signs out here for 8 years. I've been on the Sign Advisory Council that long. I see this stuff growing, and if I had every confidence that this was a focus, and this was what DPW was going to do from here on out, we wouldn't need this. But frankly, I don't have that confidence. People change over, people come and go. This is a very basic, simple rule that I don't think is controversial. It's not going to cost any money. It's not going to make anything any less safe. It's like an HDC rule that says if you're going to have a dormer, it's got to be 2 foot back off the ridge. So I think in the main, the town has a lot of bylaws, and a lot of them get followed, and some of them don't. But if we don't have one and we want to try to correct it and we don't have it covered, it doesn't get fixed. And I think this is something that if we can early on, as we keep growing and keep expanding our transportation system, if we can get a baseline that, hey, Nantucket does it this way, I think we all win. So I wish I could say I have 100% confidence that from this point forward, DPW will always act in this way or that planning will, I don't think we should expect that unless we tell them this is what the guideline is. So
Thank you, Kevin. Chris, you raised your hand, and then Joe, I'll come to you.
Yeah, just quick question. As I recall, this would only apply to new signs, right? This wouldn't create a retroactive need to go back and clean up the stuff Jill's talking about.
that's
Anyone?
correct.
Thank you.
Joe? You're muted, Joe.
Let me pass. I'll just skip. Never mind.
Okay. That was the question I was waiting for all day, Joe, and you're going to skip it? Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Up, Joe's back again.
I did. I guess after all the debate, I certainly think the proponents have every right to put an article in the warrant, obviously, and let the voters take action on it. I haven't heard anything, frankly, that doesn't make me feel like this is an excessive, putting a bylaw in is an excessive solution for what I perceive to be a minor problem. But I do think the Finance Committee can at least take an even-handed view of this, and I'd be willing to take a motion to take no action, so that basically the proponents could go before the voters and make their case, and if the voters want to vote for this, they can vote for it. But I don't think the Finance Committee owes them an endorsement. So I'd be willing to move to take no action on the as opposed to motion not to adopt. I'm sorry, as opposed to take no action. Sorry, I misspoke.
So just so I'm clear, you want your
Move it from
Justin.
take no action to not to adopt, and at least leave,
the other way, Joe.
Yeah, backwards.
It's-
Backwards.
you're
Sorry, I
going
got it backwards.
Yeah, you're going, because we
Sorry.
originally said not to adopt, and now you're suggesting take no action.
Take no action. Right.
Okay. George, you're
And
going to say something before I ask for a feedback or second to Joe's motion. George, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm supportive of what Joe just has said. It doesn't seem to me that the condition of the effort, either done in a semi-private way or as the town is now not, or maybe is doing what they're doing. But if it's going to be addressed, I think all of the players have to decide to come together, and we're not in a position to do that. So, as I say, I would second Joe's motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. So there is a motion on the table, take no action. There are motion, yeah, take no action. No, the other one.
We've got it. Let me Denise, I formally move to take no action on, was this Article 82?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Only that I disagree with Joe's distinction about what take no action means relative to not to adopt. Seriously, dead seriously, I don't. So the argument that we're changing our vote from one to the other, I disagree that that is necessarily what those two things mean. So I just think that's important to note.
And Chris, you can note it, but what do you want us to do about it?
I'll tell you. Chris wants to have a 3-hour symposium with subject matter experts on the difference between take no action and not to adopt. And he wants it during August. He wants us
Prime time if possible. No, I think my only point is I think we're adding to confusion for the voters about what those things possibly mean by using that as a reason to change our vote. So I guess I will say I won't support it because I think we're adding fuel to a fire of confusion by changing that vote in that manner.
Okay. Okay. Any other further discussion on the motion of take no action? Jill?
Well, I just want to know, does Chris, are you supporting changing our motion to adopt?
He was suggesting we go back to motion not to adopt, to be more clear. Because when you look on the Secretary of State's website for Massachusetts, Gavin does a nice job of explaining that take no action basically is a negative endorsement. So it's for all principles, it means the same as motion not to adopt in terms of the outcome. But take no action, in Denise's view, in my opinion, and Chris and I have had this discussion, really means we don't really have an opinion one way or the other, really over to you voters as to what your pleasure is. So that's how I interpret take no action, though it could absolutely be, it could be interpreted as you like. So one day we will get someone to clarify that for us, but it probably won't be today.
And that is certainly the way I perceive it and mean it in this context.
Thank you,
Just
Joe.
leave it to the voters.
Okay. So any further discussion on the motion of take no action, or can I do a roll call vote? No further discuss. I see no hands raised, so I'll start with Peter Schaefer. Take no
Aye.
action. Thank you. Stephen,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Chris.
No,
You're a no? Chris? I just want
correct.
to make
I'm a
sure that-
no.
I want to make sure Terry hears that because you had your hand in front of your mouth. Denise, aye. So the motion is take no action on Article 82. Kevin and Hillary, thank you for being here today.
Yes, and we will get with Rob McNeil and see if we can't get him on board for town meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Civic engagement has been outstanding this year and we very much appreciate it.
Thanks for your volunteerism as well, all of you.
Thank you. Okay, you're welcome to stay. We have a fascinating meeting as always, but of course, I would understand if you're going to step off. So, okay.
I've had enough meetings. Bye.
Oh, sure. Okay, are there any committee reports that we need to have committed reported on? And that's a no, so I'm going to move right over to Brian. Article 1, Brian. Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Rick will share the screen so we can take you through the articles that are on the agenda.
Thank you.
One is first, Brian.
Okay, so Article 1 is just the motion is standard to move to adopt and move that the reports of various town departments and committees as are printed in the fiscal year 2020 annual town meeting or as may come before the meeting be accepted and filed with the permanent records of the town. This is standard on every annual town meeting warrant. So we've asked for a positive motion on this article, please.
Thank you, Brian. May I have any discussion on this motion? May I have a motion, please?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
By roll call, Peter,
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
George? Thank you. Joanna?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Chris? Thank you. Denise,
Aye.
aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Great. Number 3, Article 3, please, Brian.
Yes, Madam Chair. So Article 3 behind is, I think, on the screen in front of for everybody to see. Within the general fund, we're asking for a vote to transfer $223,918 from the 3 articles listed there to an article that already exists for annual town island-wide road repairs. We're asking to do this because, as you recall, last year during the meeting in June, we eliminated most if not all capital funding, and included in that was the normal $1 million appropriation for island-wide road maintenance. 2 of these articles are roundabouts or rotaries that most likely will not be pursued for at least the foreseeable future. So we are confident and comfortable asking for the remaining funding that have been allocated for design to be reappropriated. And then from the 2015 annual town meeting, the town clerk's archival vault system has been fully completed, and there's $19,400 remaining in that article. So we're asking for those 3 to be transferred so we can allocate a little bit of funding prior to town meeting or after and on top of the $1 million that would normally be appropriated. The airport is asked for $492,000 from unused articles or remaining appropriations in the various articles listed there, all to be transferred to the repair of fuel farm. They also, as you may recall, they have a supplemental article on the town meeting warrant in Article 16 in the amount, I think, just over 1.5 million, including 300,000 of borrowing, $1 million coming from the fuel revolver itself, and 200,000 coming from retained earnings. These are all articles that are completed, and there is funding available that they can transfer to cover the repairs to the fuel farm. And then lastly, in 2014, we allocated money for medical record software in the amount, I believe, just over $100,000. That project at the Island Home has been completed, and we are asking to reappropriate that into their OAH Building Improvements Fund so that we can continue as necessary to make repairs and updates to the building.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion on the article? In which case, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Thank you. Joanna?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. Article 7, please.
When this is up on the screen, Madam Chair, I think that the town manager is going to take us through this one.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of change here. We have increasing the seasonal salary schedule by $1. It hasn't been increased for a while. And we find that very often our seasonal employees are not competitive with private industry. So we raised each category by $1. We did a little bit of rearranging in the categories. We took seasonal labor out of category C, put it in category D, and added a lead natural resources technician to D. That person will do things like endangered species enforcement and fencing and things like that. And they're sometimes hard to find. And we increased the town clerk's salary by 2%, like all of the other non-union department heads for fiscal 22.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Rick. Any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? I see none. So may I have a motion, please?
Motion
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. Look, I can say unanimously today. Article 25.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This, we had expected to be able to potentially rescind some debt, specifically the amount unneeded potentially for the fire department, but there's still an outstanding punch list for the new building. In the school, there's still some small outstanding punch list items, and then the sewer, Nantucket Harbor, Shimo, and Plus Particles. We're hoping to rescind the authorization since the projects are primarily complete. Unfortunately, as of this moment, we don't think we can actually do that at this point. We will be bringing those forward at the next either special or annual town meeting to take care of. So we would ask for a take no action on this article at this time.
Oh, let's smile at the take no action. So any discussion about the motion? In which case, may I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion to take no action.
Thank you, Stephen. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joanna. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. 27, please, Brian. And
Thank you,
Rick.
Madam Chair. So Article 27 is the renewal of the Board of Health Septic System Betterment Loan Program. 2 years ago, or I think 2 years ago, we renewed for a $2 million authorization. The Board of Health has been very busy with updates to septic systems for people on the island and utilization of this program. And we are nearing the last remaining funds within that. So we are asking for authorization to renew that program in the same $2 million. The expectation in discussion with the health director is that we believe that he'll start to see an increase, in applications within the Mattakit area. So we want to be able to have this authorization in place so that we can continue to serve a very important purpose and a funding source for people to be able to upgrade their septic systems. And just, this is a betterment. So this is attached to individual tax bills. And it does not actually, there's no taxpayer dollars put into this program. It's all paid back. The loans are all paid back by the homeowners. Once it's final, the betterment is, the amounts are then put onto the tax bills and they're paid. They can pay them all off, or they can ratably apportion over a period of not to exceed 20 years. And then they're collected annually from the homeowner themselves.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about this article? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
So the motion is motion to adopt. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, I passes unanimously. Thank you. 28, please, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what we're asking for here is to modify the monies that go into the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund for substance abuse efforts. When we originally authorized this fund, we did not include the community impact fee into this. So this article would authorize the community impact fee, at 100% of that community impact fees to be put into this stabilization fund. Would not change the initial authorization that we had relative to the local option marijuana sales tax in any way, shape, or form. And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Libby, but is going through town council review right now. So if you were to adopt it, it would be with the understanding that if town council made any editorial changes to it, that those would be included.
So Brian, on this, as it's a stabilization fund, does that mean, again, 2/3 vote at a town meeting to get the money out?
That is correct. And if you recall, in Article 9 of this year, there is $95,000 that we are asking to come out of that fund to go to NAMI.
So that will require a 2/3 vote on that particular portion of Article 9.
Yes, so it would make Article 9, yes.
Okay. Any other questions about this? I see no questions. So the motion you're looking for is motion to adopt.
Yes, please, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Joanna.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Chris. I didn't hear you, Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I keep freezing up. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Denise, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And now, Article 91. Oh, no, we're going to go right to 94. We might as well
Nope.
go to 94 first, and then we'll come back to 91. Please.
So while we're scrolling, Article 94 is an article to allow the select board to petition the legislature for a home rule petition to allow the select board to authorize debt for the airport for capital projects. As you recall, last year in the discussion, some of the timing for airport capital projects doesn't necessarily line up, or the grants that they may receive doesn't always line up with our annual town meeting. So this was language that was drafted in conjunction with not only airport council, but town council, and was included last year, and was a favorable motion by the finance committee, was adopted last year for this article. So we're asking for the same positive motion again this year.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Shaking your head. Chris, please.
Just any commentary on the prospects for this as a home rule petition, or where it sits in line, how many years we might be doing this, or?
I don't know how long it will take, Chris, or what its chances of success are. I think the discussion did revolve around last year about whether the legislature would be willing to, whether Beacon Hill would be willing to support it, given the fact that it does potentially remove town meeting from authorizing the borrowing, but the airport still would like us to try, given the fact that sometimes very large grants come up that need their ability to have a funding source available to them to start the project. And so we think it's worthwhile to at least see what Boston's appetite to do this is.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Any other comments? No? May I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll start with Chris this time.
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, I passes unanimously. Okay, back to Article 91. So Article 91 is a citizens warrant article. The reporting on the safety of drinking water by Megan Glowacki. I had emailed, as you know, invited Megan twice, and she wasn't unable to come both times. So I emailed her in the middle of February and suggested that we were meeting 13 times in March. And if she could attend any one of our meetings, we would discuss her article at that time. So I put this article off to kind of our last possible moment in order to see if there was an opportunity for Megan to join us. I did send to you her email, I'm sure, back in February in her answers to Mark Willette's questions for her. And then I resent it to you again today. I guess, Libby, I would ask you, Brian. Brian's just turned into a furry beast.
How did Peter McEachern's cat get into his office?
That's what, especially since, yeah.
I know, right? Sorry about that.
That was a classic. That was a classic. Libby, I guess we could have had Mark come back and explain all of his testing, but one of the things I did prior to our meeting, or actually just a few minutes ago, was put into Google Nantucket water PFAS, and boom, the reporting comes right up. So I think there's a couple things here, in my opinion, which are, if you want to know something, I think it is the onus sits with you, the person who wants to know, to go find it. And it's easily findable, this information, really easily findable. And if it hits 20 parts per trillion, there has to be corrective actions. So from my perspective, this seems unnecessary. So that's my perspective on this particular article. And I'm looking forward to other points of view as we discuss it and make our motion. Jill?
I'm actually okay with the reporting part of it. I think it's the testing part. I think for me personally, this is all new, and these are new state guidelines, if I understand correctly. And we need to give the water company a chance to have a new routine, what they're testing for, and then see where it goes. So maybe I just feel like the article is premature at this time.
Thank you, Jill. Libby, is there anything you want to add from a?
I was just trying to look through the town council and Mark Willett correspondence on this. And there were a lot of issues with it, not the least of which is that they pretty much already do this reporting, as you mentioned. But there were issues with how it would be enforced. It was quite unclear, quote, "This is not the type of bylaw that lends itself to enforcement by the town." And there was a rather lengthy, sort of lengthy town council review of that. I think you all probably have that somewhere. It goes back to February. So it's not my area, water, really, but I would concur with the director of the water department that it's not needed and generates a lot of confusion.
Thank you, Libby. Any other questions or comments? George?
I just think that this is an evolving issue, and the science will show us that over time. And it wouldn't surprise me if we revisit this again this next year in a totally different form. But I think the construction of this article probably doesn't suit today's circumstances.
Nicely said, George. Anything, any other comments from anyone? Is there a proposed motion? Joe?
Motion not to adopt.
Do I-
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the motion? There is not. Joe? I'll lead off the voting with you.
Aye.
Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Denise, I passes unanimously. I mean, I always applaud the citizens that want to take proactive action on behalf of the health and welfare of the island. And as George pointed out, this article is probably premature in its format and its way of approach. And as and when this evolves, I think my observation from our discussion with Mark, when we discussed this the first time, Mark Willett, was that he is very proactive on this topic, and he's definitely not going to not do the needed things to keep us safe as a community. So, and if that's the case, then we have another article from another citizen in the future. So, okay. And with that, we are finished for the day. So, good. Our next meeting is Jill.
I just wanted to go over what meetings this week. It was a little confusing in the emails today.
Yeah, that's down to me because I said I didn't want us to have a meeting on April 1st. And so Brian and Rick very proactively said then we might need one on the 31st, just in case we weren't done. I just meant I didn't want to have 3 this week. I thought we could do it in 2. So that was completely down to me saying I didn't want to meet on the 1st. I think I thought it was, a scary day or something. So we have a meeting tomorrow. And I'm quite confident that we will get through all the articles that we need to tomorrow, even if we have to stay a little bit longer just to get it done. So then that way we don't have to meet on Thursday, the 1st. Right, Brian? We should be able to get through everything tomorrow. Is that correct?
I don't see a reason why you shouldn't be able to get through everything tomorrow, Madam Chair. So I do apologize, Jill, for any confusion that may have arisen out of us trying to make sure that we had enough meetings the week. We will go ahead and cancel Wednesday, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That was really down to me, Joe, because I said I didn't want to meet on the 1st. And so Brian and Rick were like, okay, just in case we need the work, we're going to put on the 31st. And I'm like, no, I meant I didn't want to meet after the Tuesday. So
I can't do 4 meetings this week. I can't.
I wasn't
Yeah.
specific enough in what I didn't want to do. Joanna?
And then do we have a meeting next Monday, the 5th?
We do. It's with the select board to go over all of our motions, or not all of our motions, any ones that particularly the select board might want to understand why we made the motions we made.
Okay.
How
That's what I
that
thought.
happened last year or the year before, I showed up at select board when they reviewed our motions and I answered on behalf of the finance committee. And I just thought it, as a process improvement, it would be more helpful if the 2 organizations could be together. And then that way it isn't just, what I remember from our discussions, but what we all contributed to it. So that's the logic.
The
of-
planning board will be there too, don't forget.
Okay, I was unaware that it's planning as well. Good. Good. So that's where we are. And we have for Monday and Tuesday next week, but I honestly think we're going to get it done on Monday. I mean, the last time when I was at the select board meeting on this particular topic, they had maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 questions. So I don't expect there to be I don't expect us to go through each one. Let's put it that way. So, and I'll work with, I'll connect with Dawn and Judith ahead of time to make sure that we have a agreed way of working on Monday. So that would be
And then that's the last meeting until when?
until just before town meeting,
Okay.
correct? Brian and Libby? Because we'll have
Yes.
we'll have the technical amendments right before town meeting. We'll have the moderators meeting, but until then, May and June or May at least is clear. The rest of April and May is clear sailing.
We are working really hard not to have technical amendments. It's probably kind of a pipe dream, but we're hoping. And remember, please lower your expectations as to how smoothly amendments are going to go without a projection screen outside under a tent.
I think, you know, those cards that they hold up that for the comedians in the open days, we should just, yeah, maybe get those. It's going to be tough. I think this will be a tough town meeting, to be honest, not having a projection screen. So,
Good.
oh, well, we'll do our best, right? That's all we can do. So, thank you, everyone. The goal is in sight. Yes. We're almost all the way through March Madness, and I don't mean my bracket. Jill, you had something to,
Just one more question is, you mentioned that, or we saw the email that Bruce Mandel, the sponsor of his citizens article, he might want to come back. Is he going to come back tomorrow or Monday or?
yes, he's going to come back tomorrow. And he just wants to make a comment. I forwarded you his email that he sent me, and then he just wants to come and say that out loud in front of Finance Committee. So I doubt that he's going to ask us to reopen it. I mean, he can, it's within his purview, right? He's allowed to, so. Anyway, so I think Bruce will be in the public comment section of tomorrow, like Kevin and Hillary were today. But not guaranteed. He said he's thinking about it, so. Thank you, Jill.
Well, can I ask a question about that or you want me to wait till tomorrow?
No, you can go ahead and ask a question now. We have a few minutes. Go ahead.
One thing he said in his email was that, you know, Graham Durovich really wanted all the things in that article. Does that mean that Libby and Brian want those things in that article and Rob and town administration?
We didn't certainly speak against any of them. I think our only concern was, do people know about it? Like the nip bottles, for example.
Yeah.
We would support all of it, but there's going to be pushback.
Okay, good. And I think at this point, I mean, this is something maybe we'll do a debrief at one of our finance committee meetings to talk about, number one, the budget cycle and how all that works and how that can, you know, every year we talk about how we can do better. And secondly, I think there has to be potentially a discussion on this, because when we do citizen warrant articles discussion on the open meetings in December, but we don't make motions until February, it's almost like we have the discussions twice, which isn't very efficient, number one, and it's difficult to make a motion after we talked about it so previously. But then if I'm inviting people 2 and 3 times, that's a lot, you know, it's just a lot. So maybe there's a better process that we can do around when we discuss an article, unless we have questions that can't be answered in the moment, that we can make the motion at the same time. Because, you know, it would just make it more efficient, because then also the sponsors are there while we're making the motion. Because I think part of the issue of, you know, why people come back to us is because when we make our motions subsequently, they're not there and they would have liked to have been. So we can discuss that at a different meeting, but that was some of my observations of how this process has gone and how possibly we can do it. I think scheduling it this year has really worked well, and knowing what we're going to do so we don't have to read the whole warrant every time. I think that's been good, but yeah, anyway, with that, I'm extending something and I don't need to extend, so looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion
To adjourn.
Look at that, I remembered. Two big wins today, unanimous, and I remember to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
I'm going to start with Chris.
Aye.
Thank you. Joanna,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you, everyone. As always, Rick, Brian, Libby, thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.